And the day's other big stories, starting with a speech later today from Joe Biden defending one of the signature laws passed when he was vice president. President-elect Joe Biden plans to defend the Affordable Care Act before the Supreme Court hears a challenge to the law. The state of Texas sued, claiming the law is unconstitutional. Some believe the court's new conservative majority may overturn the law. Attorney General William Barr has authorized federal prosecutors to investigate voting irregularities in the 2020 presidential election. But so far, there's no evidence of it. Houston police arrested a man accused of killing a woman at a Motel 6 in North Houston. Investigators say surveillance video shows the man shooting up the woman's vehicle with an assault rifle after she left his room. Police later found that man and a female suspect hiding in the woods nearby. Mayor Turner announces a new domestic violence crisis intervention program. The plan will feature new police and medical collaborations and more mental health resources. Turner says the number of crisis calls has spiked during the pandemic. And those are the big stories on this Tuesday morning.
All right, just about 5:39 on this Tuesday morning. Former Astros GM Jeff Luhnow has filed a breach of contract lawsuit against the team. This is a big story. Luhnow claims he didn't know anything about the team stealing signs during the team's 2017 World Series run, and he's seeking $22 million. Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred has said it's on the GM if their team violates the rules, whether they know or not. The team has said they have no comment on the lawsuit.